Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm Chief Sweet. Today I'm going to teach you how to breed crickets fast and easy. Let's get started with how we're going to house them. I use a 10-gallon tank myself, but you can also use other things like this 18-gallon Sterilite tote from Walmart. It only costs $7, and if you get this, remember to get the lid because you're going to need it. Now, regardless of which house you use for your crickets, you are going to have to modify these so that way the crickets don't escape, because when they have babies, the babies will be able to climb up the walls and escape. So we need to make this escape proof, and you're probably asking, how do we do that? With this. This is shipping tape, and I put all along the top of the containers, and if they climb up, they can't climb on the tape due to its slick surface. Now that we have modified it for escapes, we have to talk about ventilation, because you're gonna have to have some ventilation for your crickets. For the 10-gallon tank right here, obviously, you're gonna have to buy a screen. I get mine at Walmart. I get the tank at Walmart, I get the screen at Walmart. Now the tank is a little expensive. It used to be really cheap. Before you could buy these tanks for like $10 a piece, but now they're like 30 bucks. But however, Petco does sell 10-gallon tanks, and they're usually 50% off, and they're still like $10. The screens might be a little expensive, so like I said, you still can go with the storage tote. The reason I use these right here is just because it's easier to stack on my shelves since I have a lot of breeding colonies going on. If you're not going to use the glass, you can use the 18-gallon storage tote. We are going to have to modify that lid that I told you to get. For the lid, all I do is I just cut a hole in it. You can make a square, circle, whatever you want to. Just a small hole about the size of your palm or your hand so that we can get some ventilation inside of the tote. Then you're gonna go to Home Depot and buy some screen. You could buy like window screen or hardware cloth. It's like $5 to $10. Get some of this. You're gonna have a lot left over. So if you see one that's a small little square, like a patch or something like that, you could buy that one instead of the giant rolls, because the giant rolls, you're gonna have a lot left over if you buy that. And all we're gonna do is just gonna cut a square out to put over the lid, get some duct tape, and duct tape it to that lid. And just like that, you're gonna have a lid so that way they can't jump out, but it's still gonna have a lot of airflow to get into the tank. Next up, we're gonna have to talk about dirt. Are you gonna use dirt or not use dirt? Now, I do have a video on how I use dirt for mine, but in this video, we're not gonna use dirt at all. But I do see a lot of people using oatmeal as dirt or as a flooring for their crickets. I would not recommend that. The reason is it's oatmeal, right? It's food, so they're gonna poop on it, they're gonna eat it. It might get moldy because they do like humidity. You're gonna have a water bowl in there. Stuff like that is gonna cause issues for your crickets. It's gonna cause them to get sick. It's gonna cause them to die. So do not use food like oatmeal as flooring. I see a lot of people recommend that or do that and come to me and they're like, I have problems. My crickets aren't breeding, they're dying off, and I see that they're using oatmeal as bedding. And I'm like, that's your reason. Just use dirt or just bare bottom floors. The dirt I recommend for your crickets is something like Repti Soil. You can get this at any pet supply place. I do make my own version of this. I'll have a link down in the description, but it's getting harder to make because peat moss is harder to find. However, if you don't want to make it and you just want to get something like this, it's going to be perfect for something like this size or this size for your cricket. You might have to use maybe 2 of these for this 18-gallon. I'm pretty sure one will work. However, Repti Soil, I really recommend it. Or Zilla's Jungle Mix. It's the same thing as this. It's just made by Zilla. Or you could use Eco Earth. Just get 1 brick, put it in water. It's going to swell up, throw it on the bottom. Boom, there you go. So these 2 I highly recommend using as dirt for the bottom of the floors. If you want to use the other method, I'll have that link down in the description. I'll explain why this is important for babies later on, but for now, we're just talking about the bare bottom floors. Now, the reason I use dirt is for humidity, right? So babies, they do like high humidity, and it's kind of hard to keep up humidity when it's a bare bottom floor. You could still achieve this though, but that's why I use the dirt. Now, the reason I'm not using it for this video is because this video I wanted to really show you that if you do it clean and easy bare bottom floors, you can really upscale like crazy and turn this into like a business and start breeding crickets at scale and making some serious money doing it. Let's go ahead and put the dirt away and talk about decor. You're probably like, decor? What? Why are we decorating cricket enclosure, right? Well, we're gonna decorate this enclosure with some egg cartons. That's correct. Now these I got off on Amazon. I'll have everything in this video linked down in the description or just floating around in this video. But these are egg cartons just for like chickens. And what I'm gonna do is I get these right here. I get this really wide one. You could also get ones from Walmart. They're kind of smaller and stuff like that, but I like these ones because I could cut them to size. And so that way I could stack them up like this. That way the cricket poop falls straight to the ground and I could clean that up if you're doing bare bottoms. Or if you're doing the dirt, it'll fall on the dirt. And if you have isopods, which is another trick, pro tip, you put isopods, they'll eat the poop, they'll breed with the crickets, and then you could sell crickets and isopods or use isopods to put in reptile enclosures and stuff like that. That's what I do. That's why I like the dirt method. But if you just want to go for cleanliness, you don't want to deal with all that, like I said, it'll be be easier for cleanup because it just falls straight down. And use this, and what I do is I just get a knife cutter or a box cutter. My bad, knife cutter. I get a box cutter like this, and I just cut it right down the middle like this, or you can use the Walmart egg cartons, and I'll stack them up like so inside of the tank, so that way the crickets have some place to hide, because the crickets want to hide. You don't want it open, okay? You want a lot of hiding spots for your crickets. If it's open, they're going to get stressed out, they're going to die. Now that we have their houses almost complete, we need to talk about one of the most important things for cricket care and cricket breeding, and that is temperature. In order for crickets to breed and to live good, you want to have it warm. Now, I keep all my crickets inside my room. You probably could hear them, and I put them up high on the shelves. And the reason I put them high on my shelves in my reptile room, if you have a hot room in the house, that's where you want to keep them. But we'll talk about, if you don't have a hot room, how to warm up. However, I keep them in my reptile room, and I put them up high. That way I don't have to use any heat source at all. And up high stays 85 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. So in order for your crickets to breed fast and easy and live long lives, you want it to be between 80 Fahrenheit to 89 Fahrenheit. Above 90 is usually like they start to die off, they get too hot, and it's usually a death sentence. So you want to make sure it's not above 90, but you want it in between 80 to 89 Fahrenheit, and your cricket's going to breed and grow like crazy. Now, again, if you don't have a reptile room, you live in a cold place, don't worry, I got you. You could use this right here. This is a heat mat. I bought this one at Walmart. It's made by Zilla. Not sponsored. You can use any heat mat you want to. I'll link a cheap Amazon one down in the description of this video as well. But this is for 10 to 20 gallons. The reason I got a 10 to 20 gallon heat mat is because I'm using a 10 to 20 gallon house for my crickets. That's the easy math for you. You don't have to worry about it. It's done for you. But be very careful. I see a lot of people making this mistake. They get this heat mat and they set it up like for a reptile, like how it's meant for it to use. You don't want to do that, because for a reptile, usually they say, oh, you're going to put it on the bottom of the tank, right? Put it on the bottom of the tank. It's going to have some vents so that way it doesn't catch fire, because the heat doesn't get trapped under the tank. Do not put the heat mat on the bottom of the tank, okay? We're going to put the heat mat on the side of the tank. Why? Because this heat mat can get very hot. You get 130 to 150 degrees on the surface. So if you have that in your tank and the crickets drop on the ground and they get on top of that, you're just going to fry them, okay? You're going to kill off your crickets. You don't want to do that. So we're going to put it on the side of the tank. And what that's going to do is it's going to create warm air going into the tank. It's going to kind of warm the tank up on the side. You know, they're not going to try to jump on the side. You know, the babies can't really jump on the side of the tank. They usually crawl on the corners, so you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to place it on the side. And a lot of times they have sticky surfaces, the heat mats. And so what I like to do is I'll just, take it off, put the sticky side on there. And don't worry, you can put it on the side of the plastic tote as well, because these totes can take a good deal of heat as well. But we're gonna monitor the heat so that way it doesn't get crazy, okay? I said 130 Fahrenheit. Even though it's on the side and it's kind of just going into the tank, you still have to monitor it to make sure it's not overheating the tank and getting above 90 degrees. And to do that, we're gonna use a thermostat. This is another, funny enough, Zilla thermostat. It's just the one that was near me. I grabbed it. You can use any thermostat you have, okay? You can buy one online, super cheap. I use tons of different thermostats. I have tons of different thermostats, so I use any one of them. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna plug your heat lamp into this thermostat, and then you're gonna put the probe of the thermostat, into the tank itself. Now that we have their care down, let's talk about feeding. So if you didn't know, crickets are omnivores and will eat pretty much anything. Now this part of the diet is actually really important. I actually have, let's say my feeder colony is on a different diet than my breeder colony, because my breeder colony, I want them to breed really fast. I want them to grow really fast. In my feeder colony, I want it to be healthy feed for whatever they're going for, lizards, chickens, whatever it is. Now, they have two different diets, and that diet is this. For my breeders, I will feed a little bit of dog food about once or twice a week, romaine lettuce, carrots, oranges, or cricket chow as well. You can just throw those anywhere in there. The romaine lettuce is for hydration, but you don't want to be feeding that diet to your feeder colony. The stuff that you're going to feed your lizards, chickens, humans, whatever you feed your crickets to, you don't want to feed that because it's going to be super high protein. Now, whatever you have, if you need high protein for it, go right ahead. But for like reptiles, you don't want high protein. crickets because it's going to build up a lot of uric acid that can lead to gout in your reptile. So for my feeder colony, I just strictly feed carrots and romaine lettuce. That's it. And a water bowl, you could throw that in there. You could also feed the cricket chow if you want to, but those are the only things. I don't feed the dog food or the oranges because the oranges have a lot of citric acid. It upsets reptiles' stomachs, so you don't want to feed that either. But for the breeders, totally different story. So that is very important feeding-wise on how you're rearing your crickets. Now you may ask yourself, how long is it until their system clears out of dog food and they can turn into feeders? Just a week. So a week of feed them new stuff like romaine lettuce and carrots only, they'll be good to go. You know, even like 4 or 5 days later after you feed them just nothing but romaine lettuce and carrots, they're going to be okay as feeders. It's just that you don't want to feed them dog food and then the next day feed them to your lizard, right? But it's also good to offer your crickets water. You can do this by buying the cricket gel that they sell at pet stores, or even buying a large water crystal jar like this one right here. Then you can make your own water gel. It's really easy. I've used this kind and it will last you forever because this tiny amount right here will make you 3 bowls of water for your crickets. However, I do feel weird that it is water gel and it's like a natural. So most of the time, I just use a very shallow water dish I got from Walmart as well. Just replace the water daily and they will be good. But remember, it is very important to use a shallow water dish. You can't use a deep one, they will drown. So now that we know how to take care and keep our crickets alive, let's go ahead and start with the breeding process. How many crickets do you need to breed? How many did you start off with? And honestly, you don't have to start off with that much. You can start off with 25, but I do recommend starting off with 50 crickets. In today's video, I'm going to use 1,000 and just do, a bunch. You're going to see a bunch go into the tank. However, I'm only doing that because I'm going to instantly start feeding them off as well. I'm going to start feeding off a lot of the males and leave the females inside of there. But what's the difference between a male and a female, you might ask? Well, let me show you. Female cricket will look like this. They have a long needle-like thing sticking out of their butt. This is what they use to deposit eggs into the soil. Males have wings and usually a little smaller than females, and the wings is what they use to make noise, like you're hearing right now. A lot of people think it's the legs that are making the noise. You'll see stuff and they're like rubbing their legs together. No, it's the wings on the back of the males. And that's what they use to attract the females and to tell other males to get away. So now that you have your adults, say you actually bought crickets and they're a little bit younger, you have to wait until they have the long thing on the female and the males have wings. Once you see that in your starter colony, you need to start prepping for babies. How do you prep for babies, you might ask? These right here. This is my egg laying bins for my female crickets. This is what you're gonna wanna have for your crickets so that way they can lay their babies in the dirt. So what you're gonna do is you can go anywhere, honestly. They sell these everywhere. They sell these at Dollar Tree, Walmart, Target, wherever. I just went and bought the cheapest ones I could find. Sandwich container. These are kind of long, to be honest with you. You can get like a shorter one, like half of this, but it's just like on sale for 50 cents, so I got a bunch of them. Now, you want it short, right? You do want it short because they're gonna have to climb up here. We're gonna have to put dirt in here, and that's where they're gonna put their babies at. But I get these and I put them inside of the tank with the cocoa fiber or the Reptisoil. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put the cocoa fiber or Reptisoil in these little sandwich containers. No lid on it. Don't worry about the lid at all. You don't even need the lid for this, okay? Put the soil in here, compact it, push it down very nice and tight. You want it compacted very good because the cricket moms, when they see it, they don't want like a really loose substrate, all right? They kind of want it compact a little bit. Not like a brick where it's impossible, but just push it down and compact it down very nice and tight. Make sure it's very moist. You want the dirt to be very moist. I like to mist it down very good, right? You don't want it to be dry at all. If it's dry, they're not gonna lay their eggs inside of this. You want it to be very moist. And this is what your final setup will look like. And all you have to do from here on out is put in an egg tray for the females. You can leave it in for about 3 to 4 days, and then you're gonna take it out, replace it with a new egg laying box for the females, and then put it in a tank that is set up just like this with a heater as well, and you can let them hatch out in the new empty tank. And the crickets only take about 1 to 2 weeks to hatch after they're laid. Then you can repeat this process over and over and have infinite crickets. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.